Hi, I'm Bart Hansen. I'm the owner and lead instructor for CrushLivePoker.com. The following hand comes from our call-in show that we record at 4:45 p.m. Pacific Time every Monday. If you want to call in your hand, check out the instructions in the video description.
So I got a quick hand. It's 2-5 again, but we have the straddle on this hand.
Okay.
Sort of, it definitely has not been a consistent thing. We've been doing a couple of rounds of straddles. This was one of the straddle rounds.
Okay.
So, guy limps in early position. I'm on the button with 8-7 of hearts. I ISO 240.
How deep are you guys?
About 1K effective.
All right, so one limp from early position. You raise 7-8 of hearts to 40 on the button. You know what's interesting? Obviously, this is, I think, is a slam dunk ISO. I used to go, so, you know, if you guys are been with me for a long time, things change with the things change with some of my approaches to, you know, games and things like that. And I think a lot has changed pre-flop. One of the things that I talk about, or that I have in the past, which is probably still generally true for a lot of low stakes players, is once two people limp in, I tend to not ISO unless I've got a hand that is like good enough to raise an early position, right? Like, you know, your early position raises hands. Now with direct suited connectors, actually, because I played a session at 5-5 at the Hustler, and I noticed this, like with a really good suited connector, and I'm not talking about gapped ones, but I'm talking about direct, because they flop much better. I can get on board actually now with making multi-way ISOs with direct suited connectors, like 3 people limp in a hand like 6-7 suited to try to get it heads up, 5-6 suited, something like that, as opposed to what I used to do, which would be like an overlimp. The small pocket pairs, those ones don't really, I feel like are a little bit counterintuitive to ISO in a spot like that. Like, I'm not a huge fan. They don't flop well, and you can still build anyways, right? Post if you flop a set. But with these direct suited connectors where you've got barreling and you're structuring barreling, I can get on board sometimes with multi ISOing. But here, I think it's a no-brainer. So you make it 40 on the button, 7-8 of hearts. Yep.
I make it 40 on the button, and the small blind calls.
So the small blind calls, okay. So cold call from
the small blind calls, limper fold.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Straddle, limper fold. Everybody else is out.
Yep.
So we get a good board for my range, if not for my hand, which is King 10 with 1 heart.
King 10 with 1 heart. Okay.
Yep. Checks to me. This is almost certainly a board that I think I would range bet with, at least against the blind, because it's just so hard for them to have anything. And I think they tend to overfold. They're sort of like ace high, like overcard type hands.
Yeah.
And even the small pairs. I think people are usually just going to piece out because it's just so difficult to have something. So I bet 40, which is probably like a little bit larger than I should, sort of in theory, but I think we'll get the job done.
Let me ask you a question here. Because when you emailed this in, so you're betting 40 into about 90 or so. So when you take a look at a flat calling range of somebody in the small blind, I mean, I don't know if this guy's a fish, but let's say he's like somewhat reasonable, whatever. I mean, most players are going to be losing players at the level. What do you look at? What kind of range is that as a flat call in the small blind you look at usually in this configuration?
I mean, it's gonna be a lot of pairs. It's gonna be some suited aces probably, and some suited broadways.
Okay, and I tend to,
and maybe offsuit broadways.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with that. And so when you look at that range, now obviously you've got a little bit of backdoor, and I know the board is good for you. But and especially if people are a little bit heavy with the offsuit broadways, what about making a delayed c-bet here? Because all the pairs that are below a 10, right? It's not like they're going to suddenly bluff. I feel like this particular board is a situation where you might risk less by checking back and then just folding to a bet on the turn, as opposed and then just betting the turn. You know what I'm saying? Like, like it's such a sort of an extreme. And again, I don't really think that a lot of players are at this level are really going to start bluffing just because you check back turn, because people are always thinking that you're slow playing something, right? Tens, ace, king, something like that. So when I first looked at this hand, I thought it was a real ripe for delayed c-betting. But okay, so you bet 40.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a good point, that there certainly are merits to delay c-betting
Yeah.
a board that's static and high. But in any event, he calls, and we get the ace of hearts on the turn.
So the pot right now is about 170-ish, right?
Yes. And he donks 75.
Wow, he donks for 75. That's fucking weird, huh?
Yes. That is what I thought.
Let me ask you a question. So again, it's king 10 rainbow with one heart. You make a c-bet with 7 8 of hearts, small blind calls, turns the ace of hearts. What if he were to check here on the turn?
If he was to check the turn, I think probably what I would do is bet a decent size on the turn, and then if he calls, that's it.
You know,
Like,
it's interesting that you say that, because I look at this spot again on the turn. If I had started a c-bet on the flop, I might delay double barrel the turn, because you certainly have enough really strong hands here that credibly would play, like, as people think, as a slow play in the form of ace king or pocket aces. And when you look at that type of range that the guy calls with on the flop, let's say that he's slow playing a king, he has queen jack, he has a 10. He's just going to check to you on the river, and you can bet at the end. Like, who the fuck takes a bluff? Who takes a bluff line here of bet, check, bet? If he's got like jack 10, is he going to call on a deuce river? You see what I'm saying? So it's kind of interesting.
Yep.
It's kind of interesting. Now, this donk lead here, that didn't happen, but interesting hand for different approaches for delays. This donk lead here at 75, that's really, really kind of weird, in the sense that if he's slow playing a king and he doesn't want the board to get scary, he's just coming out and betting, or he has queen jack, like, is he going to fold those types of hands? Like, what do you think this donk range consists of, basically?
I think it's most probable, it's possible that I'm being, like, sort of biased by the things that happen to them in the hand, but it kind of strikes me as he floated ace high and now doesn't know what to do.
I don't know, man. I mean, that would have to assume that he has ace jack and ace queen as a flat call, and now he's betting, but he's betting the turn though on king 10. I feel like that's going to roll into like a check call type of thing. I mean, it looks like on the surface that obviously you have the nut advantage, right? Like, you have ace king, you have pocket aces. He doesn't. That's true. And that's why he's never supposed to bet this turn. But this is live poker, right? So we got to make an exploit on an exploit. I don't think he's folding the turn really here. This looks to be like queen jack or a king that's starting to get scared, and I don't think you're going to get him off of that unless you're going to do something crazy like make it, 300 and then ship the river. But that's not usually the best approach to winning at live poker, trying to get somebody off of trips. He's betting 75 into 170 here. I'm never going to look at the board, right? King 10 ace. He doesn't really have a lot of boats, right? But based on preflop, he can't really have boats, right?
Yeah, he can't really have boats, and it's difficult to articulate. But I just don't think he has a king when he does this. Like, maybe, but it just seems so weird. Like, I don't know.
I don't know. I mean,
if he had a nutted hand.
My initial reaction here is that, sometimes you can actually fold in this spot, but when you look at the distribution on the board, I'm not going to fold because I don't think he has boats here. And if he has a king or queen jack, you're going to get paid, right? He's betting 75 into 170, so you're immediately getting, 3-1. So I just think that I would call here. I mean, again, I could be off base just in my experience. Like, if I was playing in this Hustler game, I had so much fun at Hustler. It was so quiet. Nobody really knew me. Not like the bike. The game was so easy. If this happened to me at Hustler at 5-5 last week, I think I would call and just try to hit my hand. But what did you end up doing?
So based on my read, which may or may not be correct, that this doesn't strike me as a king. This strikes me as ace high, or some kind of like weird pair. It's like trying to take control of the pot and ensure that it sees a river. and also just the disrespect I feel that he is donking into my board. I raised to 275.
Okay.
And he thinks for a minute and calls.
All right, so let me just recap the action for people that are listening
Yep.
on the podcast. So and call. So you ISO 7-8 of hearts over a limper on the button to 40. Small blind calls only. Flop comes out king, king 10, rainbow with 1 heart. Check. You bet 40. Small blind calls. Turns the ace of hearts. You pick up a flush draw. Small blind donk 75. You now raise to 225, 275, right?
275.
And a call. So the guy calls. So the pot is 720, and it looks like you have about just under a pot size bet left, right? 700 or some shit like that. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Now what are you thinking when he calls your turn, raise the turn?
Now I'm pretty sure that he doesn't have a king. I feel like a king
Really?
or straight.
Why are you pretty sure he doesn't have a king? Because you think he would just jam all in with like king jack or like king queen here when you raise the turn? You could have tens, you can have ace king, you can have aces.
He could have a boat, but like he has to donk a boat. Like
I don't think he has a boat, but I don't think he has a boat, but I don't think he has a boat, but I think a lot of your optimistic range of check call with ace high lead turn, I don't know, it might go out the window, but all right, what's the river?
It's conceivable. The river is an offsuit brick, 4 that doesn't bring in a flush draw.
Okay.
He checks. Now, even though theoretically, because basically what I've done when I raised the turn is I said, like, I have a good king or a boat.
Yeah.
It would be perfectly reasonable in theory to shove and just polarize myself.
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
I'm not actually in the but I'm not in the business of trying to get people to fold trips.
Right. I think I would just give up. Honestly.
So instead, what I decided to do is bet 325 because I want him to fold an ace that he somehow calls with. And if he's got a king, he's never going to fold to any bet. If he's got queen jack, he's never going to fold to any bet.
So again, you are still going with the assumption that you think that he might have some ace X, and after you raise the turn and he called, that he's going to fold for half a pot size bet. Now remember too, it's not like he is like, I don't think you see a lot of guys call with like, say for example, he's got like ace 6 suited with a backdoor. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's king, king 10. The people at 2-5 don't call those $40 bets with those hands on king, king 10. So now you have to actually look at this and like, in reality, the only real way for him to have just an ace is if it's ace 10, ace jack, and ace queen.
Right.
No
and ace jack and ace queen are top pairs and gutters.
Right.
People don't 3-bet pre.
Right. Okay. People don't 3-bet pre, so they'd have to check call lead turn, call your raise, and now fold at the end. I mean, kind of seems optimistic. But okay, so you bet 325.
And his cards could not have hit the muck any faster.
So obviously he didn't have an ace.
I guess. I don't know. But he turbo folded.
Is it possible that he might have had 10x of hearts? I guess it's possible, right? King, king, 10 rainbow with the king of hearts.
I guess
the ace of
he
hearts.
could have 10x of hearts. He could have
queen 9 of hearts.
Queen 10 of hearts or queen jack.
Yeah.
He could have the pair in the gutter.
He's not going to have queen jack turbo mucking on the river, right? Queen jack's a straight.
10 queen, queen 10 and jack 10. The middle pair that turned to gutter on the 8.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you got that portion of his range to fold. If those were his hands, you can see how few combos there are and how many more combos there are of king act. And if he's calling pre with offsuit broadways, he has a full 16 combos of queen jack. He's got king queen off, king jack off. That's a lot of hands. It really crushes the.
But that's all inflected through the assumption about like what he does with those hands on the turn. Does he donk them?
No,
in my experience, these donks are like just very weak hands almost always.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I appreciate the call. Thank you. Hey guys, if you like what you've seen here, please click on the subscribe button and you'll get notified every time we put up a new video. And if you want to check out crushlivepoker.com for the first month free, use the code YTA200. Click on the link right there.